All right. So just the other day, yesterday actually, I was sitting down at my computer, doing what I do when I saw some crazy fucking shit on Twitter, some absolutely insane shit on Twitter. Apparently, AOC had gotten arrested at an abortion rights rally protest in front of the Supreme Court. And, well, I was like, damn, I wish I'd streamed today because I definitely need to be covering this. So I went ahead and decided to push it back to today, but now we're going to finally figure out what the fuck is going on because I purposefully deprived myself of any info on this so that I could save it for stream and I could read this article on stream for all of you guys and learn about it with all of you guys. Isn't that fun? Isn't it nice? It's like a reaction video. Xanderhall reacts to AOC getting arrested. We can call it that. No pre-watching, of course. Democratic lawmakers, including Ocasio-Cortez, Tlaib, Spear, and more, arrested an abortion rights protest in front of the Supreme Court. More than a dozen Democratic members of Congress were among those arrested by Capitol Police on Tuesday afternoon as part of an abortion rights protest in front of the Supreme Court. Wearing specially made green bandanas with "Won't Back Down," they marched from the Capitol to the court, which has been fenced off for weeks, since shortly after the leak of the draft decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Within 2 minutes of their arriving, police began ordering them to cease and desist. Instead, they sat on the street and were one by one led off by officers as they chanted, "The people united will never be divided." Bars. By the way, peacefully protesting and being taken away by the police, this should be a very clear sign of where our country is at right now, as far as the how grim it is. It's very grim. Things are looking grim. That's all I can really say. The U.S. Capitol Police tweeted, "Demonstrators are starting to block First Street Northeast. It is against the law to block traffic, so officers are going to give our standard 3 warnings before they start making arrests." Capitol Police later said they'd arrested 34 people total, including 16 members of Congress. Among those arrested are Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark of Massachusetts. Hey, little hummingbird. Anya Presley of Massachusetts, Barbara Lee of California, Jackie Sphere of California, Sarah Jacobs of California, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, Bonnie Watson of Coleman of New Jersey, Andy Levin of Michigan, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, John Skavosky of Illinois, Madeline Dean of Pennsylvania, Cori Bush of Missouri, Carolyn Maloney of New York, Nadia, I can't tell, Velasquez of New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, and Alma Adams of North Carolina. This has basically resulted in a conservative outrage over AOC because this looks really good for her. You have to understand, for a very long time, the right kind of had this layer of plausible deniability. You know the Leidenfrost effect, where if you get your hand wet and then you put it under something hot or something really cold that should hurt you, it won't. It's where you get those videos of people like quickly moving their hand under molten metal or molten lava or whatever and not getting hurt. It's because they wet their hand first, and the water on their hand just kind of evaporates and forms a nice gas layer to insulate your hand from the high heat or extreme cold. Just for a few seconds, though. It only lasts a few seconds. So, with that said, for a long time, the right had this like Leidenfrost effect of, well, hey, we may have very horrible ideas of what we would like the world to be, but at the very least, we just apply that to our own lives. We're anti-abortion and anti-gay marriage and anti all these things, but in our own lives. Just keep it away from us and it's all good. And that's for a long time what people who would defend conservatives, the enlightened centrists, would be able to point to as well, right? Like, hey, maybe the right has horrible ideas, but they're just words. I'll fight and die for their right to say these horrible things, but because they're just words, they're not actually doing anything. And for a long, long time, the right had that defense, at least for the last like 10 years, because they weren't really in power that much. And as far as, the mainstream knew, the right wasn't doing anything crazy. But believe me, during that time, they were. Um, Regardless, though, pre-Trump presidency and everything, there was a lot of plausible deniability that the right was actually doing things like attacking rights to, abortion or gay marriage or anything like that, right? However, in recent months, the recent year, I'd say, the right has gotten far more brazen, despite the fact that Trump is no two hummingbirds in my feeder, despite the fact that Trump is no longer in office. Even though Trump is no longer in office, they've gotten more brazen because they realize they don't need to control the presidency to implement their will. Conservatives have always fallen back on states' rights as an excuse to take away the rights of the people. And right now, that's what they're doing, particularly when it comes to abortion rights. Once they take away all federal protections for it, that leaves it up to the states, which means, sure, all the blue states are going to be, pretty accessible as far as abortion goes, but there are going to be seas, endless seas of red states in which abortion will be unobtainable. And not only that, but as we've seen, they're passing laws to rat out women who go out of state for abortions. They're passing laws to rat out women and fine them or give them prison time for this. There are laws being proposed to punish women for having miscarriages or fine women for having miscarriages. This is where it leads. Dystopian levels of bullshit here, okay? And they always had this layer of plausible deniability, but not anymore. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing people like AOC getting walked away and getting arrested in much the same way that, here, if we look at Bernie Sanders arrested, this image right here in lovely 480p. This is Bernie Sanders getting hauled away and arrested at a civil rights rally in the 1960s or something like that. He was literally dragged away and arrested. So when you have a situation that very much parallels something like that, it's a bad look for the right. It makes AOC look like a martyr. Now, I'm going to be real with you here. AOC is not in any real trouble, okay? She's not going to be spending any real time in jail, prison time. She'll get fined. She's probably already out of jail if she ever was in jail or ever even got brought to jail. You could tell the cops were handling her carefully. They didn't even handcuff her, which we'll get into that in a moment. This isn't going to be the end of the world for AOC by anything close to a measure, okay? This, however, martyrs AOC significantly. And looking like a martyr is really good in politics. It makes you go down in history. It just does. And it works, and it motivates people, and it turns you into a driving symbol, right? So AOC getting arrested like this, to the right, is a really bad thing. So they've had to start downplaying how much of an obvious crackdown on free speech this is. Because if this ever happened, and when this does happen to conservative or Proud Boy rallies, the right loses their mind over it and talks about how it's, anti-free speech. But when the cops do it to the left, kind of looks bad if you're not also out there saying that's bad, because you're supposedly the free speech no matter what guys, right? So they can't do that. They can't cede that ground, and they can't just look like they don't care about free speech. So instead what they're doing is downplaying what happened to AOC. So unironically, they've tried to claim that she wasn't really arrested because they didn't put handcuffs on her. You guys can probably find the video pretty easily. It's literally just AOC being led away by two cops, or one cop, I can't remember exactly. And she's got her arms behind her back like this, but she doesn't have handcuffs on. She's just holding her hands behind her back voluntarily. And people are trying to claim that this is AOC pretending to have handcuffs on to make herself look like she was handcuffed, thus to look more sympathetic. Now, this makes no sense and is a very stupid thing to claim on several levels. Now, for starters, if you're getting arrested by the cops, regardless of whether or not they have handcuffs or anything to put on you, or whether or not they do, you should honestly probably put your hands behind your back or wherever the cops fucking tell you to. You put your hands wherever the fuck they tell you to. And in this case, it was probably behind her back. And so she did. She was complying, clearly. It's why she was walking with the cops and they weren't roughhousing with her or anything like that. Obviously, she's also a congresswoman, so generally, it's not the best look for cops to be dragging a congresswoman away in cuffs from a civil rights rally. There's that as well. They might have been, trying to be a little more gentle with the literal, congresswoman. And then, of course, we have the fact that, when you're, why why would she pretend? When you can there's literally millions of cameras, millions of people watching from hundreds of cameras, all from different angles looking at her. Why the fuck would her thought process be, I'm gonna pretend to have handcuffs on, no one's gonna notice? Obviously, this is a massive reach from the right to make something that isn't even that bad that happened to AOC look even less bad, because the right can't concede anything. This culture war shit, whether or not they won the most recent culture war narrative, is what they stake their mental health on. When the conservatives are losing the culture war, they're legitimately miserable. I don't know if you've seen it, but like, I've gotten like some private info about like the mind state of conservatives during the time when like BreadTube was really blowing up. Like, they were scared for where things were heading, unironically. Like, it was actually really funny when I found out. There were people in that community that were genuinely scared for like the way YouTube was headed. Like, it didn't seem like their type of content was going to be viable in the future. It was really, really funny. Regardless, though, they can't cede ground. When the left is winning on the culture war issues, they feel like they have lost all their value as a human being. Like, a lot of these conservative types online, you can see how personally they take like political disagreement. Like, there'll be a TV show that will have messaging in it that is vaguely progressive, and they'll comment on like every Twitter post for the official Twitter account of that show, "You ruined this show by turning it into woke bullshit." And it's like, it's so clear how personally and how like how much their feelings get hurt by people disagreeing with them politically. And they project that, hurt feelings onto the left and claim the left are the ones that get their feelings hurt and get triggered by anyone disagreeing with them. And they'll say I'll respond to a video. I'll respond to any video the conservative makes and be like, well, here's why it's stupid. And then their fans will reply, "Ha, you're so triggered. You're proving the point of this video by even responding to it." And it's like, I'm proving the point of the video by responding to it. That is the mindset a lot of these conservatives are genuinely in. And when they're losing politically, it hurts them, like, on an emotional level. It's actually very funny. So they have to do what they're doing here. They can't cede the ground that maybe, just maybe, the left is having their free speech and their civil rights, and marginalized people are having their civil rights kind of cracked down on right now. They can't even cede that ground. Not even the political demagogues, not even the individual conservatives that follow them. Pretty cringe, if you ask me, but with all that said, if you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like. It helps the channel, the video, and my stream out a lot more than you can realize. So like it whether or not you're watching, whether you're watching this when it goes up as its own video, or if you're just watching the VOD while it's live or after the fact, drop a like. It helps a lot. Subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually knows to alert you when I go live or upload a new video, because they won't do it otherwise. And of course, if you want to see more from me online, you can follow my social media, all linked down below. And finally, of course, if you want to support me financially, you don't have to, but if you got the money for it, you can always donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website. Or you can support me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or Patreon. All, of course, are linked down below. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.